What up, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel, and as always, thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate it. It's Matty B, and today we're coming at you with some Pro Motocross preview action. I am so excited for TGO, the Great Outdoors, which are kicking off this weekend at Fox Raceway. Going to be a long, gnarly, grueling summer, and I'm really excited to bring you guys some insights, some reviews, and some previews from the series because I actually have experience in racing these tracks and racing some of these guys, albeit not on their level, but I've at least been out there, been on site, and being that I've raced my two-stroke in the 450 class, I've had the opportunity to actually spectate and watch a lot of the 250 action, especially whenever I was missing races and going the DNQ route. I actually got to watch everything, 250 and 450 classes. But first up, I'm going to bring you my preview for the 250 class, and then later today we'll do the 450 class preview. And I have a lot of questions heading into round one, kicking off this weekend. For starters, can Hayden Deegan win his fourth straight championship in professional racing? You guys can argue it out in the comments if SMX counts or not. It's only a 3-race championship, but it still pays the big bucks. And at the end of the day, I do still think it's a title, and Deegan is on a run right now. Finally nailed down that 250 Supercross championship, and we all know historically he's been better outdoors, so he really could be tough to stop this summer. But he's going to have a lot of challengers in the form of the Pro Circuit Kawasaki guys with Kitchen, Hamaker, Marchbanks, maybe even the rookie Drew Adams. You got the Hondas of Chance Hymas and Joe Shimoda. Got the other 250 Supercross champion Tom Vial on the KTM with his teammate 2 Juice Beaumaire. You got Deegan star stablemates Nate Thrasher, Michael Moseman, and a surprise comeback from a veteran 2-time champion that we all thought was done. We got the Triumph guys with Smith, Faulkner, and another surprise foreign racer for the summer. The Troy Lee Gas guys, the Club MX Yamaha guys, the rookies that are entering the dog days of summer for their first time, and everybody in between. So it's going to be a stacked summer. Getting points is going to be an incredibly tough task if you're anyone that's not on a factory team. So in just a minute, we'll get into my top 10 predictions for the 250 Motocross series. And I've seen the entry list, so then I'll try to go over everybody that's just on the outside looking in out of my top 10, and then all the privateers and everybody notable on the list. Notable is a very relative term, so I'm just going to try to highlight everybody I know on the list because they deserve the props for taking on the challenge of Pro Motocross. They have no choice. But I think we're about to be in for a truly epic summer, starting in SoCal at Fox Raceway at Paula, then heading up north to NorCal at Hangtown, followed by the altitude of Thunder Valley, and then the Pennsylvania hills of High Point. Then the middle portion of the series consists of the sands of Southwick, the Gnarls Barkley track of Redbud, the sand whoops of Millville, and the hard-packed slick surfaces and shadows of Washougal. And then the final 3-race swing includes the site of the Motocross of Nations at Ironman, the rocky hillsides of Unadilla, and then the finale at the tight humidity pit that is Budds Creek. The outdoors are core, the outdoors are what we all grew up riding, and I cannot wait for the series to kick off. So enough rambling, let's get into my top 10 predictions, starting with 10th place. We'll race him when it's time. I've got Ryder DeFrancesco on the 25 Rockstar Gas machine. I've gotten to watch him a couple times when I went out west, the first time in April and then just last week for the Stopwatch National, and he's looked really good. And we even had another factory rider to judge him off of, 2 Juice Beaumaire, and Ryder D looked considerably better, so I think it's going to be a good season for him. He's a really good starter. He puts himself in good positions, and he's been riding outdoors for a long time. He was injured and out of Supercross early, so I think he's got himself in a good spot to really turn some heads early. Then in the 9th spot, I've got Jordan Smith. I've seen a lot of people predicting that the Danish rider Mikkel Harup is actually going to be the top Triumph rider. But actually outdoors, especially last year, it seems like Jordan's a lot more of a steady force than he can be in Supercross. Maybe not the highest of highs, but not as low of lows either. So he might not have the race-winning potential that we've come to know out of him in Supercross, but I think he'll be right there all season, 5 to 10. I think he's coming in a little banged up, but he's got the airbag. He can bounce off the ground, and it'll buff out. The dude's tougher than a damn $2 steak, and always has been. Then in 8th, I've got Joe Shimoda, Sushi. Don't even try to call me a racist. He runs it on his butt patch. And honestly, I had a really hard time picking Joe all the way down in the 8th spot because he is such a good rider, has such great technique, so talented. And I don't know what it is, but the dude just somehow seems to find ways to not deliver. He came out firing in Supercross. We all know he had the pipboard incident, but then he never really got it back going ever since then. So I feel like he's kind of stuck in a rut right now, and I don't really see him pulling out of it for outdoors, but I would love to be proven wrong. Then for 7th, this is a crazy one. I guess UPS and the Star VIP experience just weren't cutting it because Jeremy Martin, the 2-time champ from 2014 and 2015, is making a return to racing this summer with Star Racing Yamaha. It started out being reported as a 3-race stint, but now it looks like he's going to be in the mix all summer long, and this dude's got the dog in him. I know it's been a long time since he's been on top, but I don't think you ever lose it, and reports are that he's already been pounding out 40-minute motos at the goat farm. So these comebacks after multiple years off are always really tough in theory, but even tougher when you get out there on the track. But if anybody can pull it off, I think it's J-Mart. I'm not even going to put podiums or maybe even a moto win past this guy. He's a legend. Then for the next few spots, I've got the Pro Circuit boys, starting with Ty Masterpool in the 6th spot. And Ty, he could be fire and ice this season. He has some really, really good races, but then he has some races where you don't see much of him, maybe some bad starts and some crashes. But he's got another year under his belt on a factory team with the right crew behind him, so maybe that all evens out and he's a little more consistent this year. And I'm definitely not putting it past him to get another win. I think he's got some of the most flash out of almost anybody else in the class. And I believe he's only been on a 1-year deal for Pro Circuit this year, so he's definitely going to have to prove himself this summer. He's fighting for a ride. Then in 5th, there's a really good chance I'm selling this guy short, and this was really hard for me to put him all the way back in 5th, but I've got the chef, Levi Kitchen. Last year, he was really good, plenty of moto wins and a couple overall wins, but he was coming off a great Supercross season and a couple of really healthy years where he was able to build a good base. But he had a decently bad injury in Supercross with the huge crash at Daytona this year, and I think he was even coming into that series with maybe a few health concerns, so I don't really know if Levi is going to be firing on all cylinders, especially at the beginning of the series, but the dude's got the talent to be a lot better than 5th. I just have some questions. Then in the 4th spot, this is a little bit of a bold pick from me because I don't believe he's ever made it through an entire outdoor season, but I've got Seth Hamaker. I think he continues the momentum from his awesome Supercross season, and I usually don't think people are just going to get better out of nowhere, but he's made a lot of changes with his program. Now he works with the Lawrence brothers. I think he's going to be riding with Chance Hyman down at the Dog Pound all summer. So with all those things considered, I think that's going to turn Seth into the total package for outdoors. But like I said, he hasn't made a full season yet, so I do think there's going to be some bumps in the road and a learning curve to it, but I think he has a breakout year and ends up in 4th. Then in 3rd, I've got Mr. Consistency, Tom Pepe Le Pew Jean-Gerard Vial. Oui, no choice, but I think Tom has just a solid summer. I think he's right there in that 2 to 5 range. Very consistently, of course. That's his strong suit, and I think he continues to use his strength to just be there every weekend. I don't see him having the top end speed to really challenge Deegan, or maybe even the guy that I have in the 2nd spot. But he wasn't the fastest guy in Supercross either, and look how that ended up. So you guys know he's going to be there week in, week out, stacking points. In the runner-up spot, in 2nd, I've got Chance Hyman. I think he's going to be the biggest threat to Hayden Deegan this summer. Not a great Supercross season besides the win in the mud, but I think he's known that for months now. The outdoor prep has been well underway for quite some time, and all the reports are that he's flying at the test track. He was a breakout star last summer, and I think the trajectory just continues on this summer. I think we're in for multiple moto wins and some overalls this season, but I'm not sure if it's going to be quite enough to take down the guy who I have for the championship. Not really going out on a limb on this one at all. I think Hayden Deegan gets it done again. I think he's just too much of a dog outdoors and too good a shape, and just too good of an outdoor rider to let this one slip, barring an injury or anything crazy like multiple bike problems or anything out of the ordinary. 30 minutes plus 2 is a lot more time to make up ground from a bad start compared to what he had in Supercross. And even with the starts compared to Supercross, the starts are plowed up much deeper, and I think that suits the Star Yamaha a lot more than the flat starts that are not disked up in Supercross. I think that power is a lot harder to handle on surfaces like that. And yeah, all in all, I think it's Deegan's world in this 250 class, and everybody else is just living in it. But this 250 class is deep. I'm talking real deep, and there are tons of names that I did not mention, so we'll go ahead and get into the rest of the contenders, and we'll start with Hayden Deegan's teammates on the Star Racing Yamaha squad. And this team has been decimated by injuries heading into outdoors, but first up we got Michael Mosiman, and he could be a serious dark horse this summer. Haven't seen him outdoors for a few seasons, but especially Hangtown, look out for this guy. And then we got Nate Thrasher. He's a grinder. He'll be in there week in and week out. Well, unless he gets hurt. And then those two, along with Deegan and J-Mart, that's all the team has as far as riders going in healthy, which is insane for how big their roster is. But on the injured reserve is Max Anstey, still struggling with a leg injury, Cole Davies after being landed on by Jordan Smith and almost going decapitation mode in Salt Lake City, Pierce Brown still out from injury after that brutal crash while leading the 250 East opener in Tampa, and finally Dax Bennick, who I think has suffered multiple concussions in a row, and that's never something you want to mess with, so I think he's taking some time and waiting to come back until he knows that the dome is good to go. Then we got the Pro Circuit Cali boys. First off, Garrett Marchbanks, the man-child who's not a child anymore. And I had a hard time leaving him out of this top 10 because he has the potential to really fight for top fives, but he's just a bigger guy. I think he's going to struggle with the starts with the deep disked up start straights. But get this guy out of the gate and he'll be lethal, and he's fighting for a ride for next year, so he's got some extra motivation. Then we got the rookie, Drew Adams, and I feel like he's coming in really under the radar for how good of a rider he is. He is an incredible talent, actually kind of smoked Cole Davies at Loretta's and beat him a lot in SMX Next last year. So I think Drew, more often than not, may actually be a top 10 guy, but I just think the growing pains with being a rookie and racing 11 weekends throughout the dog days of summer could cause some inconsistency. And then we have Cameron McAdoo. I don't think we should expect to see him at all during the outdoors as he's recovering from a torn ACL suffered right before the start of Supercross. I pretty much only know this guy as Tom Vial's teammate now, as Red Bull KTM has two Jews Beaumare. We'll see if any team tactics are utilized at any point during TGO. Rockstar Gas's Casey Cochran, who I feel like is coming in a little bit forgotten about, was out with injury all Supercross season, but I saw him pounding out motos out west at Glen Helen. He's putting the time in, and I think he'll be ready for round one. Then we got the Triumph boys, starting with Austin Faulkner, who I honestly just hope he continues his streak from Supercross and makes it through the season healthy, continues to build, and just puts himself in a position to be back to the Austin Faulkner we all know by next year. Then we've got Styles Robertson. He should be back in action after being out with injury again during the Supercross season. The poor dude has had a rough run, and I just hope he turns it around. And then the Danish rider, Mikkel Harup from the MX2 class in MXGP. A lot of high hopes for this guy, and I think on his good days, he will be really good, maybe some podium or top 5 potential, but coming over and racing another series from another country is tough, and I feel like the bad days are really going to limit his potential for the overall point standings. And then, of course, Jalek Swoll, who was out with a torn Achilles from before Supercross. I'm not sure if he'll be back in action for the outdoors or not, but I do see that he's back on the bike and getting back into it. Now, on to the Rockstar Energy Husqvarna squad. Oddly enough, it doesn't seem like they're going to be fielding anybody in this outdoor season as RJ Hampshire has moved up to the 450 class. And with the financial situation with KTM and the KTM group, maybe this is okay for them. Maybe they're just going to save a buck. And now on to the leader of the non-factory teams, a team that continues to blur the line of an A and a B team with the Club MX Yamaha team. And the squad will be led by Maximus Voland, and by all accounts from my Club MX insider, Handbrake Max is flying. Then the Russian, who's actually not really a Russian because he was born here, which is a good thing because then he might not be able to race. But Alex Fedorstov, we saw him win the championship in the SMX Next at Salt Lake City, and this kid has incredible speed. Poor Jet Reynolds will miss the start of the season due to injury. He tried to ride the other day, but it was just too painful. So hopefully we see Jet back in the mix by maybe round 3 or 4 because this kid still has so much potential that he has yet to show in the pro ranks. And then Supercross rider for the team, Devin Simonson, not contracted to race the outdoors, but I believe he'll be the person that they plug in if there's an injury from anybody on the team. Then the Phoenix Honda team, I think this may be their first time heading into pro motocross with a full effort, and they have Nick Romano on the 39. He's also still struggling with an ACL injury, but he's taping it up, hoping it'll buff out and letting it eat. Then we have Gavin Towers, who is actually quietly very impressive in Supercross as a rookie. Not 100% sure on this one, but I swear I've heard some rumblings of Cullen Park remaining in the 250 class for pro motocross so he can continue gaining some points for an SMX effort in the 250 class. And then lastly, Evan Ferry. Not sure if we're going to see him this summer or not, maybe somewhere in the later rounds, but he's still recovering from a torn Achilles and he's back on the bike. Saw that he was doing some laps at one of my local tracks. I just saw the Bar X squad in action at Glen Helen last weekend, and they are looking really good with their switch to Yamahas as they have Dylan Schwartz, who could race for 3 to 5 business days. The dude never gets tired. They have rookie Parker Ross, who they picked up right after Supercross. He's another one. He's a grinder. He'll be good late, and he'll be there the entire moto, passing people up to the very end. And then they have amateur Cole Timbo, who I believe will just be dipping his toe in at Fox Raceway this weekend for the opener, and then heading back to the amateur combine for Hangtown. And then on a similar program, Enzo Temmerman, who I also watched, have some insanely impressive rides last weekend at Glen Helen against the pros. And we saw him get some wins this year in SMX Next. He will also be testing himself at Fox Raceway in the pro ranks and then heading back down to the combines and Loretta Lynn's. The AEO Power Sports team is a bit of a low-key effort that has really been growing and getting better and better in the last couple of years. And they have Lux Turner, who is super underrated. Expect to see him in the top 20, more races than not. And then they have rookie Avery Long, who's another one incredibly underrated, really good as an amateur, got second in both the pro classes at Loretta Lynn's last year. and he won't get tired. He's in shape, and he's an awesome rider. I expect to see a lot out of Avery Long, and then they have CJ Bernard, who I think is a new rider that joined the team towards the end of Supercross. The Partzilla PRMX Kawasaki squad, as far as I know, they're racing in Canada this year, but the opener at Fox Raceway is the weekend before the opener in Canada, so they'll have Mark Phineas, Hunter Yoder, and Jack Chambers on the line for round one as a little bit of a warm-up for the Canadian Series. And then speaking of the Canadian Series, we got the 800. No, it's not Michael Lessie. It's Preston Massiangelo, and he actually is Canadian, and I believe he's probably using this also as a warm-up for his own series. The Tylube Honda team has at least 2 guys, maybe 3, but they have Privateer Journeyman and an absolute digger, Ryder Floyd, and they also have Trevor Collop, who's put up some seriously impressive results on the board at Supercross for a relative unknown. I have yet to see this guy surface on the entry list, but he has to be racing. Hardy Munoz, somebody mount a camera on this guy and live stream the footage, please, I am begging you. Not sure if we're in for the whole series or not, but he's on the entry list for Fox Raceway, the 195 of Kurt Busch, Lance Kobusch. We could see some off-road guys enter the fray, especially in those first few West Coast rounds. I saw that Kai Aiello is one of them. He's committed for the first 3 rounds. Not really sure what team this is, but I think these guys pit together. But we have Stav Orland from Uganda, of all places, and then Dalton Venter from South Africa. He's on the entry list for Fox Raceway, and I'm thinking it's likely that national number 99, Brock Bennett, is in for the duration of the summer, and then his teammate, straight from TikTok, Dalton Braggs, Daxton Briggs, whatever his name is, he'll be there. And I jokingly say TikTok kid, full props, Dayton Briggs rips. The 85 of Max Sanford & Sons is also on the list for round 1, but I thought I saw something about him and maybe Dylan Walsh headed up north for Canada this summer, or maybe I'm just imagining things. The local boy from my town, my boy Hamden Hudson, who is now with the Wildcat Racing Team, had, in my opinion, a surprisingly successful Supercross season, made a couple of mains, and was in the mix every weekend. Crockett Myers, he's another one who made some mains in Supercross this year, and he was under the radar, actually very good in outdoors last year, a lot of top 20s, and a lot of motos where he was mixing it up with the tail end of the factory guys. And a lot of times, as a privateer, that's about all you can ask for. British racer Charlie Heyman is going to leave the fish and chips across the pond and come give it a try in the States. And then last but not least, Chandler Baker. I think he's probably in for most of the rounds, if not all of them. And if you're racing and I didn't say your name, I'm sorry. I've been checking up on the entry list, but I don't think it's all the way updated. And there's no way I could possibly make a video about every single person on the list. So don't be offended. It ain't you, it's me. But that's all I got for the 250 preview. Thank you guys for tuning in. And as always, let me know in the comments what you think, what your predictions are, if you think mine are on point, if you think I'm cooked, or anything in between. And as always, I appreciate y'all watching. We'll be back in a few hours with the 450 preview, and I hope you guys are as excited for the great outdoors as I am. Let's drop the damn gate. Catch you guys next time.